இந்த சைடு உட்காந்தானா அவர் பின்னாடி உட்கார மாதிரி இருக்கும். இதுதான் கரெக்டு. பார்த்தியா?
எல்லாம் small people really.
Alright folks, how are we all doing today?
Good.
That's a perfect amount of enthusiasm for 4 o'clock on a Friday. My name's Christian. I'm one of the historic interpreters here at Fort Mackinac. This is going to be our dress parade and rifle firing demonstration. Before we get to that, I'd like to talk about the uniforms we're wearing, what a dress parade is, and then we'll get this whole little party started. So to start off, me and my other interpreters are wearing our dress uniforms. These are sort of like the suit and tie of the Army, so they're wearing these for more formal occasions. But one of the most common occasions they'd be wearing this for is their evening dress parade. Now this will be taking place every day with the full garrison of about 80 to 100 men. Today we have about half a squad, so we'll have to use our imagination a little bit. But these dress parades would be a very common occurrence here at Fort Mackinac. They're just a nice way to close the day out. They'll do a full ceremony, they'll lower the flag, and then it pretty much just signals the end of the soldiers' workday. However, here at Fort Mackinac, these dress parades would naturally draw curiosity of tourists. Mackinac Island was just as touristy in the 1880s as it is today, so naturally the fort would be willing to cater to these tourists. In fact, they would open these gates every Tuesday and Thursday and invite folks in to watch their evening dress parade. We have photos of this. If you look down by our South Sally ramp, we have a picture from 1883 of the soldiers all lined up in their dress uniforms on the parade ground in front of the barracks and in the middle of their dress parade. And up on the hill you can see tourists just watching them, just as there still are sometimes today. However, to get this thing started, I am just one man, and one man does not make a parade, so I'm going to fulfill the pretty much main job here as the fort bugler. You might have heard me playing a few calls just a moment ago, and the bugler has a very special role in the Army. He is both their Army's means of communication and pretty much an alarm clock. Most famous call, of course, being Reveille for the alarm clock. But there's also several calls that might be heard in a garrison like Fort Mackinac. As I just played was the dress parade call and the assembly, telling soldiers that there was a dress parade about to start and that they should assemble for it. But there's also several battlefield calls one might hear, such as fire, advance, ceasefire, halt. But the call I'm about to play to start this dress parade is called the adjutant's call. Just get the adjutant or the officer officer of the day out to inspect the soldiers. So this will be adjutant's call. Alright, and the soldiers are going to march out on the parade to start off. Once they get up here, I'm going to pass it off to Jack, and he'll go through a little bit more of the process of this dress parade. Quarter arms. Parade dress.
Well, hello folks again. My name is Jack, and I'm joined up here by Maverick, by Clayton, and by Isaac. Now, during a dress parade, you have to remember that the garrison here at Fort Mackinac is about 180 to 100 men, so 2 companies. So they've all would have converged at some point here on the parade ground. The guests would have been lined up, just as Christian was said, along that tree line, which those trees would have been there back in the 1880s and 90s, or up along the hill, and sometimes you do see photos of tourists on this very porch. This has a lot of military ceremony and regulation to it. So this would have been done once a day, every single day, through much of the season. The only time they wouldn't do it quite like this is when there was a massive rain, or it was in the middle of winter and they would actually do this parade and inspection out on this porch or in the barracks themselves. So there's a lot of different processes for this. One is to inspect the soldiers, and another is to actually convey orders and instructions for the soldiers. And the first part of that, we are going to inspect the soldiers. So the command will be squad attention. And once we get into this position, typically, once the soldiers are presented in front of the adjutant, who is kind of controlling the two companies for the commanding officer, there will be some sort of salute given to that officer, and which the officer would send back. So at this point, I'm going to bring the men up to present arms, and then I'll ask the bugler to sound off. And again, another kind of these ceremonies and parades. Carry arms. Present arms. Bugler, sound off. Carry arms. Order arms. Parade rest. From here, they would actually inspect the soldiers, making sure that the weapons and their uniforms are in good working condition. So the command will be, squad, attention. Fix bayonets. So bayonets are still being issued to soldiers in the 1880s, even though there isn't a lot of fighting or stabbing going on. Order arms. But they still serve this parade and ceremonial function. Carry arms. To the rear, open order, march. So now, what I will do as the inspecting sergeant is go through the line and make sure the weapons are all in good firing order and that the uniforms are in good condition. So they'll bring the rifle up, bring it up to safety, and from here, I can tell you that this is a Springfield 4570. This is the standard issue weapon for the United States Army for nearly 20 years, from 1873 to 1892-93. And this is the first standard issue breech loading weapon, so I know this looks like a stereotypical muzzle loading weapon, but this weapon is actually loaded for the rear here. So I can inspect the breech here, where they would normally put a metallic cartridge. I can see that Maverick's rifle is clean. I can bring it back and give it back to him. And I can go through the line and inspect everyone's weapon. Close order, march. Carry arms. Support arms. So another important step, and this would have been done every single day with the exception of Sundays. This would be done twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. And that would be roll call. That would be to make sure that the soldiers are actually all present here at the dress parade, making sure that they aren't somewhere else where they aren't supposed to be. So each sergeant would make sure that their soldiers were present, and the sergeants were trained to learn that not only the voice of, not only the names of all their soldiers, but the voice of their fellow soldiers. So that way no one could pull any tricks on them. So let's say your buddy was down still at one of the bars in the village, no one else could cover for them. And that's also done visually. So when I call each one of their names, not only are they going to call here, they're also going to bring their weapon down from this arms position to order arms. So I can physically see that there's a change. So there shouldn't be two rifles moving at the same time. So, Private Sharp, here. Private Reyes, here. Private Westfall, here. And the whole garrison is here today. Pretty easy when you only have 3 guys. So at this point, the soldiers would have been brought to parade rest. Parade rest. And the commanding officer of Fort Mackinac, through his adjutant, would give any orders that were necessary. These orders could be announcements for the President of the United States, signifying, marking the 4th of July, or the passing of important generals or political figures. This could be as simple and as small as who's going to be doing guard mount tomorrow, who's going to be doing fatigue, who's going to be doing some sort of special extra duty work. Any small thing that the soldiers might need to know, they were going to hear it right here and right now. But once that is concluded, the officer will then go through the manual of arms to close things out. The commanding officer will bring them, and you've all seen these arms positions, just about all these arms positions already. So we'll go through that process real fast. I'm playing a multitude of different roles right now due to the a few number of people there. Unfix bayonets. Order arms. So this is the position of attention. This is where soldiers are supposed to be ready to receive other orders. Very basic position. Carry arms. This is the most basic mobile position with the weapon. The soldiers can move around as necessary with this weapon. They can march around with it. Support arms. You've seen this position already before. This is probably one of the more comfortable positions because the hammer is resting right on the forearm. It's supposed to be kept as vertical as possible. And so this is good for not only waiting here for your name to get called, but also for long marches. Carry arms. Right shoulder, arms. This is a very popular way for the soldiers to carry the weapons. It's seen as very athletic. If the soldiers were going to be doing any running with the rifles, they would automatically go to this position. This is also a very picturesque way of carrying the weapons. If you look at any photos from whether the Civil War or in the 1880s, during the time period that we interpret, you'll see photos typically of soldiers carrying the weapons like this. It gives that nice gleam of the bayonet in the sight. Carry arms. Order arms. Parade rest. So at the end of the day, at the end of this ceremony, once all of the instructions have been given, the commanding officer will dismiss the parade, and company officers will dismiss their soldiers. But as that process is happening, the commanding officer would order the bugler to give the command, sound off. One more time, and that's going to signify when he's going to start playing retreat. And that's when the American flag will be lowered. Now, you have to remember, back in the 1880s, soldiers didn't render arms the same way to the flag as they do today. Today, if you went to an army base and you started hearing retreat, all the soldiers will stop, then they'll start playing to the colors, and they'll all salute as the flag is being lowered. Here in the 1880s, only officers would render that sort of salute. The soldiers would kind of be dismissed to whatever duties they have or their own end-of-the-day projects. But one other ceremonial thing would happen at that very end of that song. At the very last note of retreat, a cannon would be fired from the upper gun platform. Now, since I don't have the staff nor the communication skills to make sure that we'd all be able to coordinate that very well, and since I think you all would like to see us fire these 45-70s, what we're going to do instead is we'll march away down this end of the parade ground, and Christian will begin to play retreat. And at that last note, we will fire a salute shot with our rifles instead. Now, this is going to be a bit loud. We're only firing one shot, but it will still be quite loud. We're not using any 45 caliber bullets. We're still using the full 70 grains of black powder. So I'm going to be putting these bright orange foam, historically inaccurate earplugs with the rest of my staff. So when Christian is done playing that tune, and you'll hear me give the commands, ready, squad, firing by squad, ready, aim, fire, that's your sign. You might want to cover your ears with your hands and fingers. We're going to step back and finish off this parade for you in just a moment. Squad, attention. Carry arms. Sound off. Forward, march. Column right, march. Squad, firing by squad. Squad, ready. Aim. Carry arms.
Well, that's going to conclude our dress parade and rifle firing program. Thank you all for coming out. If you're interested, we'll be starting our Women of Fort Mackinac tour in just a moment with Jack over here. If you're not interested in that, our next event will be at 5 o'clock with a cannon firing demonstration. That'll be up the black stairs behind the commissary. Whichever way you go, we thank you for coming out to Fort Mackinac. We appreciate you all being here, and we hope you have a great day.
Women's Park naman.